Bulbasaur, the seed Pokemon, which seems fitting as this video is also seeding my YouTube channel. Welcome! I am exceptional and I hope you are too. In this video I will be attempting to complete Pokemon FireRed using only a Bulbasaur. My rules will be outlined in the video description, but the most impactful rules are: I can only use my starter in battle, no items in trainer battles except held items, no glitches, exploits, or RNG manipulations. Accuracy moves aren't explicitly banned, but they are kind of boring, so I will avoid them. And I will be playing these runs mostly at 3x speed, but we will be getting into that more later. Now, this little rascal has a base stat total of 318. The bulb stats are pretty balanced between HP and speed at 45, attack and defense at 49, and is a little bit more specialized with 65 in both special attack and special defense. Complementing these stats is a move pool that is frankly a little disappointing. Through level up, my little dinosaur gets a fairly typical suite of grass-type moves. Along with some offensive grass moves, we have status effects we can apply to our opponents, and more importantly, a setup move in Growth, which increases our special attack stage by 1. Through TM and HM, we don't have many offensive options. Grass moves like Giga Drain are incredibly powerful, but lack what Bulbasaur desperately needs: type coverage. The only offensive move we get access to that is neither grass nor normal is Sludge Bomb, but we can't get that until after the Elite Four. Oh, and Rock Smash, but we're not going to talk about that. We'll discuss our moveset plan more later, but for now, let's jump into some gameplay. We start off where all Pokemon adventures start, at home with nothing but a dream. I make sure to pick up some free potions available to us in the early game, as I suspect we'll need them all. I grab the PC potion, the potion from the Pokemon employee, and the potion from behind the cut tree in Viridian City. After sitting through a mandatory cutscene showing us how to Pokemon, we move through Viridian Forest without that much to talk about. I pick up more items along the way, ignoring the antidotes, because as a poison type, our little Bulbasaur can't be poisoned. Makes sense. We grab a hidden potion in front of the mandatory bug catcher and proceed to our second battle of the run. It gets a little dicey, but as long as we rely on Weedle's love of string shot, we're fine. I have a bit of a cheeky idea for the Brock fight, and defeating this bug catcher brings us to level 7, granting us access to Leech Seed. The first gym leader is notorious for slowing Pokemon down in the early game. The rock-hard trainer has 2 Pokemon, a level 12 Geodude and a level 14 Onix. These two are physically defensive walls, and with the addition of Stab, or same-type attack bonus, Rock Tomb from Onix, they can deal some pretty serious damage to any Pokemon. Bulbasaur, however, doesn't really care today. We're just going to shoot some seeds at them and growl at them. We'll just leave that to Bulbasaur. You may notice that I will continue to spam growl even when it doesn't have any effect. I'm doing this to conserve tackle PP for the upcoming route. I plan on our first Pokemon Center visit being right before Mount Moon. On the way out of town, I will also stop by the mart to pick up some items, including repels. The following route is handled by using a combination of Tackle, Vine Whip, and Leech Seed as needed for free healing against Pokemon that set up Harden or don't take much damage from our attacks. At level 15, we do not learn Poison Powder, but will absolutely take Sleep Powder over Growl. At level 16, Bulbasaur begins trying to evolve. This means every time that we level up from now on, I need to cancel the evolution animation by smashing the B button. I considered giving my Bulbasaur an Everstone as a held item at the start of the game, which would prevent it from evolving and save a significant amount of time throughout the run, but decided that at any gameplay before the Elite Four, I want to keep as close to the vanilla game experience as possible. As we near the end of Mount Moon, I defeat the mandatory rockets, the scientist, and I grab the Helix Fossil because it's right in front of me, and I'm all about maximum effort. Coming into Cerulean City, I have 2 options, Misty or the Rival. I am terrified of what the Pidgeotto can do to my little Cetasaur, so I decide to take on the gym. I fight the trainers in Misty's gym as they are essentially free experience. Vine Whip carves through these early game water types and brings us to our second gym leader. Misty is equal parts pushover and challenge for Bulbasaur. As long as I don't get terrible RNG, both of her Pokemon should fall easily. Unless they don't. Both her Staryu and Starmie have access to Water Pulse, which has a 20% chance to confuse. The Staryu isn't very threatening otherwise, but even at a type disadvantage, the Starmie can inflict whopping damage due to our low defense stat. I decide to go into the fight at level 20 to gain access to Razor Leaf. Razor Leaf has 20 more base power and a high critical hit chance, which I hope will trivialize the fight. We start the fight at a slight disadvantage as both of her Pokemon outspeed us. Staryu hardens on turn 1, which is awesome, as we're dealing damage with our special stat. Bulbasaur hits a critical Razor Leaf and Staryu falls in one hit. Watching that health bar absolutely melt is giving me a good feeling about this fight. Starmie comes out and hits with a Swift, doing about a third. We strike back, taking Starmie into deep orange health. Okay. Everything is going to plan so far. But then, Starmie strikes back with a massive critical hit, taking Bulbasaur down to 1 hit point. We thankfully don't miss our Razor Leaf and take out the Starmie for the W and our second gym badge. Whew, easy. With Misty out of the way, the only option forward is to face Rival 2. By far, the scariest Pokemon on his team is the Pidgeotto, and that's not because it's the only one capable of knocking us out. It can pummel Bulbasaur with stab super effective gusts, and even worse, it can lower our accuracy using Sand Attack, making the rest of the fight much less consistent. I decided to go with a Leech Seed against it to give me a little bit of consistent damage and healing if this terrifying bird decides to wake up. After knocking out the Pidgeotto, Charmander comes out and uses Ember. Make no mistake, this level 18 Charmander is more than capable of ruining our day. I followed the same strategy as Pidgeotto, using Sleep, Leech Life, and Razor Leaf to get past it. Abra is free because it only knows Teleport, which does nothing in trainer battles, and the Rattata also goes down to a single Razor Leaf. Maybe, just maybe, our little bulb is starting to bloom as we begin to pick up some momentum. Bulbasaur breezes through the next section of the game as it defeats the Rocket at the end of Nugget Bridge. By the way, you can repeatedly white out against this Rocket, and every time you initiate the fight, he will give you another Nugget. I won't be doing this in my runs, as I would consider this an exploit. Cruising along the path, I make sure to pull away the trainer that is guarding an item to the north of him. This is TM43 Secret Power, a 70 base power normal move with a 30% chance for an effect based on terrain. Most of the time in this run, it'll be a chance to paralyze, with the exception of Rock Tunnel, where we will have a chance to flinch instead. Either way, it is a heck of a lot better than Tackle. We rescue Bill and then totally remember to talk to him again. Yes, moving on. After saving Bill, we defeat the Rocket and retrieve TM28 Dig, which our little Bulbadude unfortunately cannot learn, but will still be useful as we carry on in the run. Here is where we're going to take a little bit of time to catch a Meowth. Meowth has an ability called Pickup. Pickup gives, even when the Pokemon hasn't participated in a successful battle, a 10% chance to pick up an item from the ground. In FireRed and Leaf Green, this is a static table and is not affected by the level of the Pokemon, like it is in Emerald, for example. We're looking for 2 things primarily: additional rare candies to save on grinding time later, and more importantly, TM10, Hidden Power. Both of these have a 5% chance to be found if Meowth happens to pick up anything at all. At the start of the run, I edited this Bulbasaur to give it the best possible shot of completing the game. I put it in a software called A-Save, where you can edit all kinds of fun things. For now, we're only going to focus on how I changed Bulbasaur's IVs, or individual values. IVs are best explained as the Pokemon's genetics. IVs are also new to Gen 3, replacing the DV, or determinant value system. At the, we'll call it the birth of a Pokemon, the DV system would assign a random value between 0 and 15 to each individual stat, whereas the IV system assigns a value between 0 and 31. This change essentially broadened the range of differences between individual Pokemon, making them seem more real. What A-Save allows me to do is edit these values to maximize Bulbasaur's raw potential. Another thing that IVs determine is the type and power of your Pokemon's Hidden Power ability. I reduced Bulbasaur's IV value slightly from Perfect to assign it a Hidden Power Ice type with a base power of 70. My Bulbasaur may not be a perfect genetic specimen, but it is pretty darn close, and HP Ice is going to save us countless headaches. I will note that this Bulbasaur is 100% findable as your starter without third-party software, but you will likely need to reset your game a lot to find it. Rival 3 on the SSN is the next scary battle. After obtaining some items around the ship, we begin to see the true challenge of going through the game as a first stage Pokemon. Each of the Rival's 4 team members have now evolved into their second stages as Pidgeotto, Raticate, Kadabra, and Charmeleon. I am slightly over-leveled, and yet each of these Pokemon has a reasonable chance to knock out Bulbasaur. First, I try to go full offense, but the Kadabra finishes me with confusion. On the next battle, I make it to the Charmeleon and get knocked out after a few embers. This is the power of Sand Attack. On the third attempt, I get some better luck, followed by some awful luck, followed by a tight win. I am so surprised that the Raticate didn't finish me off with a quick attack, but I'm not complaining. We get the third gym badge from Lieutenant Surge. Bulbasaur is a grass type, so Lieutenant Surge's powerful electric moves will be resisted. Even so, we do need to be careful. His level 24 Raichu can pack a wallop, especially if the preceding Voltorb and Pikachu manages to paralyze us, reduce our defense, or if the Raichu manages to get some double teams set up to raising its evasion. I pick up the bike voucher before heading into the gym and begin on the trash can puzzle. The trash cans work properly in this generation, meaning that the first can is purely RNG, with the second can being random and adjacent to the first. So, I will find the first can, then save and reset until I find the second can. Probably not how Game Freak intended the puzzle to be solved, but they did give me a save button after all. The Surge fight isn't anything special for Bulbasaur. Voltorb goes down without much issue, and the Pikachu falls to a single Razor Leaf. Raichu tanks a couple of extra hits while setting up evasion, but fortunately, I hit him with a Leech Seed early. After a stunning amount of misses, Raichu goes down without any incident, netting us our third gym badge. We now need to backtrack to Cerulean. On the way I pick up two hidden items that I left behind earlier, a citrus berry on the left and a rare candy on the right. I get back to Cerulean, exchange the bike voucher for my new stylin' ride, and begin to mentally prepare myself for Rock Tunnel. The keen observers out there will probably notice that my timer is gone. I was having problems with it up until this point and decided to scrap it. Don't worry! It will be back soon. I'm definitely learning all the nuances and myriad of problems that exist when making videos. I am learning after all and will continue to learn and improve the quality of my content as I continue to release videos. I bumble around Route 9 on my way to Rock Tunnel as I try to remember which items are which. We eventually get to the entrance, and despite how many years it's been since I sat down to play one of these games, I still remember the route through. It's like riding a bike. But I won't be riding my bike, because at 3 times game speed, it's too hard and too fast for me to control properly. There isn't anything in this section of the game that gives Bulbasaur any problems, so next it's on to Lavender, Celadon, and a rocketing good time. One quick note about something significant that did happen in Rock Tunnel is Bulbasaur leveled up to 32, giving us access to Growth. This move will definitely help us throughout the rest of the playthrough and is a permanent addition to our moveset. I ummed and awed about which move to replace for a few seconds, but eventually caved and replaced Leech Seed, which has saved our bacon a few times up until now. Luckily, we're a plant dinosaur, and this is not a spoink run. As we continue into what I would consider the beginning of the mid-game, we start off by doing a bunch of chores. In the gatehouse south of Lavender, I pick up TM27 Return. The power of Return is based on your Pokemon's friendship level. In FireRed, you can swing by your rival's house in Pallet Town, and Daisy will assess your Pokemon's friendship level. Friendship can be earned and lost in a variety of ways, but we'll get more into that in a future video. I continue running around collecting a few items, including getting the tea from the lady in Celadon Mansion, which will grant us access to Saffron City. I did some shopping at the department store, and with a bit of a detour picked up HM2 Fly. This will definitely streamline my travel as I get my Pokélegs back under me and continue to run around the map 50 times. I make sure to grab the hidden PP up in this little nook in Celadon and proceed into the game corner. I defeat the most subtle guard in history, touch the button behind the poster, and head down to the rocket hideout. In Generation 3, obtaining the Sylph Scope is mandatory, so we cruise through, defeating a handful of rockets and collecting items. While this footage plays in the background, I have a confession to make. We're no longer watching the same run that we've been watching up to this point. After making it to Lavender Town, we've been watching footage from run 1.5, as I'm calling it. In the original run, I got to a point in this mid-game section where I had cleared everything that Bulbasaur was capable of clearing, and was beginning to grind on wild Pokemon, still looking for TM10 from my Meowth pickups. I didn't want to make a video where my strategy became leveling up past all of my problems, so I decided to revert to an old save at Misty and replay this section of the game. The only thing that really changed was that I caught several Meowths instead of just one. This theoretically increases my pickup chance by a factor of 3. Giovanni is a fight that can go wrong at the Kangaskhan, and in our first battle he knocks out Bulbasaur with Mega Punch. In the second fight, he knocks Bulbasaur out with Mega Punch. My stubbornness gets me knocked out by Mega Punch a third time, and finally I realize that I have a solution in my moveset. I begin to set up growths against the Onix and Rhyhorn, who aren't that threatening, and with some awful move choices from Giovanni, I take the win and my Sylph Scope. I quickly teach Dig to Meowth to get us back to Celadon quickly, and then fly us over to Lavender Town. The next section of the game is Pokemon Tower. I was a little nervous going in here, as the Ghastly and Haunters throughout resist my Grass-type move and are immune to Secret Power. The reason that I haven't taught Return over Secret Power yet is that I'm unsure about whether I'll need it later or not, so I'm saving the TM. In case you've been wondering about how I'm jumping all over the map, it's been through the power of video editing. You can see here that when I flew to Lavender Town, the Lavender Town sign appeared and faded in its normal way, but then reappeared at the top left. This is because I healed at the Pokémon Center, but I don't consider that as being critical footage for you to watch. Otherwise, these videos would be ridiculously long with the amount of raw footage I captured. Rival 4 is a straightforward fight. I take out the Pidgeotto, set up growths against a sleepy Execute, and proceed to sweep his team. This will absolutely be the last easy victory against the rival. Given how Bulbasaur has performed so far, I'm getting more and more worried about the champion fight against a Pidgeot, an Alakazam, and a level 65 Charizard with Fire Blast. I continue up the tower, picking up a few items along the way, including an elixir and a rare candy. I then defeat the Marowak that was previously locking us out of the top section of the tower. The rockets at the top can be a little scary with some bad luck or a crit from the Golbat, but otherwise we breeze through and rescue Mr. Fuji. I receive the Pokeflute from him and proceed south to do a little bit of extra training. This training serves two purposes, as I predict Bulbasaur is going to need more levels before Rival 5 in Sylph, as well as it provides Meowth more chances to finally pick up TM10. In case you've been wondering, yes, I have been checking my Meowths after almost every fight. The reason I believe pickup does not break FireRed is that constantly checking my Meowths is having a significant impact on my game time. With more powerful Pokemon in future videos, I don't believe pickup will be absolutely necessary, but first stage Pokemon are going to need all the help they can get. After coming up once again with donuts, I decide to fly back to Celadon and proceed to Saffron City. Sylphco is in the center of town and is littered with good items and trainers for me to defeat. I start my training in the Fighting Dojo, as this is a very high density area for experience, and this pays dividends. An extra rare candy, and I can't believe my eyes. It's hidden power! At last. I teach it to Bulbasaur immediately, and I hope that this is where the run starts becoming a bit easier. I finish off the rest of the dojo and decide to go take on Erica. Along the way, I decide to drop off my extra Meowths in the PC as they're no longer useful. I will come to regret this decision later, but for now we have some type diversity on our moveset and we are laughing our way all the way to the gym. With the hidden powers of ice within my Bulbasaur, I feel like I will absolutely steamroll every trainer in here. I fight all the trainers, and that brings us to our fourth gym battle, the Grass-type leader, Erica. This battle at this point is so trivial. I put the Victory Bell to sleep, set up a few growths until it wakes up, and get paralyzed by Stun Spore. In hindsight, it would be a good idea to bring a Cherry Berry into this fight to prevent this in the future, as I am fully paralyzed a couple of times throughout the fight. I am, however, so over-leveled, set up, and cool. Frosty. Chill. That Erica's Pokemon stand no chance. I finish off her Vileplume and claim the 4th badge. At this point, I have two main routes to continue the game. I can go south to Fuchsia City to take on the Safari Zone and Koga, or go back to Saffron to take down Team Rocket and Sylph. I'm feeling pretty weary of Koga's gym, less because of what he can do to me, but of what the trainers in his gym can do. His gym is littered with Hypnos that are bulky and no Psychic, which is super effective against Bulbasaur. I decide to go into Sylph and continue to train and maybe take on Rival 5, if that's even possible at this level. In Sylph, there are two things I always begin by doing. First, ignoring some janky elevator exits, we go to the 5th floor and pick up the card key. Throughout Sylph are a bunch of locked doors that we will need the card key to open. I defeat the mandatory Arbok trainer and pick up the card key, followed by a PP up in the northeast plant. I then proceed to the 9th floor, where you can access a free heal at the beds in the southwest corner. I pick up a hidden calcium directly north of the beds in the plant and continue fighting trainers and collecting items. I will cover more of the item locations in a future video once I have a bit more of an efficient route established. During my disjointed and slightly scattered Sylph montage, I want to take a moment to talk about vitamins in Generation 3. Earlier when I was shopping at Celadon Department Store, I picked up a couple of Carboses and Calciums to boost Bulbasaur's speed and special attack respectively. Feeding these vitamins earlier on in the run is important in Gen 3, and this has to do with the newly introduced EV system. EVs replaced what used to be stat experience. In Generation 1, when you picked up a vitamin, generally the best tactic was to feed it immediately to your Pokemon, as you could use all of the stat experience you could possibly get. In Generation 3, this changed and is slightly more complex, but only slightly. We discussed IVs earlier in the video, and following the genetics outline, if IVs are nature, EVs are nurture. As you defeat Pokemon, they will give you a set number of EV points. For example, defeating a level 3 Rattata will provide 1 speed EV, and a level 100 Rattata will also provide only 1 speed EV. A Pokemon can obtain up to a maximum of 510 total EV points, with there being a cap of 255 points in any individual stat. For every 4 EV points you receive in a stat, you will increase that stat by 1. It's therefore more optimal to get 252 EV points in your stats of choice, because the remaining 3 EV points would be redundant. If I haven't lost you yet, then excellent, because I'm about to explain how vitamins affect EVs. In Generation 3 and 4, vitamins will increase a specific EV by 10 points. However, they will only increase that value to a maximum of 100 EV points. You won't be able to continue using that same vitamin type, but you can use other vitamin types up to that same limit of 100 EV points and the total EV point maximum of 510. The reason it's more optimal to have your Pokemon eating vitamins as early as possible is because as you battle trainers and progress through the game, you are constantly gaining EV points. And they aren't necessarily always in the stats that you would prefer them to be. Feeding the vitamins as early as possible allows you to allocate more EV points into the stats that you want. Our Bulbasaur wants as much speed and special attack as possible, with extra points being split into defense, special defense, and HP. I want to avoid attack EVs as much as possible because especially heading into the endgame, I will never be using my physical attack stat. This is why I will be selling any proteins that I receive in the hopes of buying as many carbos and calcium as possible. In FireRed also, there is no way to reduce EV points unless you trade berries from Emerald or from another version of the game. With all of that said, in keeping with the disjointed theme, I totally bailed on Sylph and decided to travel south to Fuchsia City. The reason that I left is because I decided to test how I'd do against Rival 5. To say the least, it did not go well. We're going to have to come back here after leveling up a bit more, so let's put the run back in order and check out what we did in Fuchsia. Coming back into the Safari Zone gatehouse where we were a minute ago, let's enter the Safari Zone. In this playthrough, I'm not interested in catching any Pokemon. I should have used some repels, but continue anyway through the areas, picking up items and running away from the scary Paris. I arrive in the last area where I pick up the Gold Teeth and HM3 Surf and retire immediately from the start menu. We exit the Safari Zone, get lazy and fly back to the city that we're already in, heal, and exchange the gold teeth we picked up for HM4 Strength. I definitely do not forget to come back here to get the free rare candy, as the only Pokemon that we have that can currently learn Strength is Bulbasaur, and, well, no thank you. We proceed into the gym and I try to avoid the trainer in the southeast corner that has a level 38 Hypno, unsuccessfully. I try to put the Hypno to sleep even though it has insomnia and get a lucky critical hit with the Razor Leaf. We then wipe out the remaining trainers on the invisible route to Koga. Koga is the poison-type gym leader, and that works well enough for us, as Bulbasaur can't be poisoned. Unfortunately, poison isn't what Koga is known for. He's known to spam accuracy and evasion moves instead. This makes the fight more frustrating than difficult. I sleep and set up against the coughing and proceed to sweep through Koga's remaining Pokemon despite getting hit with Smokescreen. I feel like this was a little lucky, but I'll take the win and our 5th badge. Our only remaining option to continue progressing through the story is to face down Rival 5 back in Sylph. Coming back to Sylphco, we're going to jump straight into the Rival 5 battle. Bulbasaur starts strong with a miss from Sleep Powder. On the next turn, I put the Pretty Bird to sleep and then set up a single growth. A single HP Ice takes the Pidgeot out in one hit. Okay, good so far. I put the Exeggcute to sleep and continue to reset. Having my speed reduced by paralysis in this fight is a death sentence. This is when I finally decide to teach Bulbasaur Giga Drain. My reasoning for not teaching this over Razor Leaf prior to now was that despite an increase of 5 base power, 5% more accuracy, and healing Bulbasaur for half the damage it inflicts, I felt that while grinding, having the 25 PP of Razor Leaf was more beneficial than the only 5 power points that Giga Drain has. But now I feel that we're at a point in the game where Bulbasaur needs more sustainability. In this attempt, I wanted to see how much damage HP Ice would do to Pidgeot without any setup. Unfortunately, it doesn't do quite enough for the one-shot. The Pidgeot can really mess up the fight for Bulbasaur with Sand Attack or knock me out on its own, so I want to neutralize it early. My plan is to knock out the Pidgeot, sleep and set up on the eggs, and then sweep his remaining members while trying to avoid Sand Attacks and Paralysis. In my next attempt, I put the Pidgeot to sleep, set up one growth, and then knock it out with HP Ice. Execute comes out, and I put it to sleep. I set up 2 more growths, bringing Sour to +3. I knock out the eggs and cross my fingers. Alakazam's AI doesn't see a kill and sets up Reflect instead. Charizard still outspeeds us and hits a devastating Flamethrower, bringing us down to 9 HP. HP Ice deals neutral damage as Charizard is a fire flying type, and we don't get the kill. But we did gain some valuable information. In some additional attempts following the same strategy, I learned that Flamethrower is in fact a damage range and can knock Bulbasaur out from full health with an unfavorable range. Knowing that I will likely never outspeed the Charizard and Alakazam again, I decide to add more consistency to the early stage of the fight. I follow the same strategy with the Pidgeot, but have changed Bulbasaur's held item to a Cherry Berry. In this fight I managed to set up 5 growths against Execute. It wakes up, and I decide that while I still have my berry to set all the way up to +6 special attack. It uses Stun Spore, I heal, and I knock it out in one hit. Alakazam uses Reflect, so we take it out for free, and out comes Charizard. It hits a Flamethrower, bringing us down to 3 hit points, and we retaliate with HP Ice. Seeing the damage that we did with +3, I am confident that +6 will KO, and it does. The crit did not matter, but I feel it added a triumphant bit of overkill to taking down our rival's ace. We outspeed and one-shot the Gyarados. Note that if I had been paralyzed, I would not have outsped, and it would have knocked out Bulbasaur. And there goes the battle! This fight was a bit punishing, but nowhere near what some future fights have in store for us. I pick up the free Lapras, and she will be our last HM cheerleader that we need to complete the game. I clear out the final rocket and move on to the big boss. But I don't foresee Bulbasaur having any problems with Giovanni. I feel perhaps overly confident coming into this fight, as my strategy seems to be mash the A button. On the Nidoqueen I see that I won't knock it out in 2 hits, so I set up a single growth and proceed to knock out the rest of his team with no problems at all. We could now choose to go to Cinnabar Island to attempt Blaine, but defeating Sabrina while we're still in Saffron feels like the safer choice. Both of these gym leaders have a type advantage against Bulbasaur, but Sabrina is a lower level and doesn't have the added advantage of resisting all of our attacks like Blaine will. Before going to the gym, I heal at the center and stop at the mart to replenish some items. I want to make sure to have repels before surfing the ocean to Cinnabar and Cinnabar Mansion. I stumble my way through the warp pads and the Psychic Leader's crib, and we're now ready to take on our 6th gym leader. I spend the first part of the fight doing what Bulbasaur does best, putting its opponents to sleep and setting up. Despite some very quick wake-ups from both the Kadabra and the Mr. Mime, it seems that Sabrina is also intent on setting up using Calm Minds and Barrier. Alakazam comes out, hits a big Psychic, and then Bulbasaur retaliates with Gigadrine, taking out the Alakazam. This hit did knock Bulbasaur into Overgrow range, which we haven't discussed up until this point, but first we'll finish the fight. Venomoth comes out, I outspeed and one-shot. We are now the proud owners of the Marsh Badge. One quick note is that I have been using my Meowth to dig my way out of a lot of buildings, this gym included. That's why it looks like I'm coming down from a warp pad as I exit the gym. It's a nice little trick that saves a fair amount of time over the duration of a run. Let's take a moment while I surf south from Palatown towards Cinnabar Island and clear the mansion to discuss what I meant when I said that Alakazam put Bulbasaur into Overgrow range. In Generation 3, Pokemon were given abilities that add some additional flavor and strategic opportunities to each Pokemon. Bulbasaur's ability is called Overgrow. What this ability does is whenever Bulbasaur is below 1/3 of its maximum HP, its Grass-type abilities do an additional 50% damage. I haven't found many opportunities to use this ability in our battle so far, as I've been finding Bulbasaur too frail and too slow to be able to use it consistently. It feels like anytime we find ourselves below 1/3 of our total HP, we're using Giga Drain and recovering, or there's another Pokemon that will outspeed and just finish us off. The other 2 FireRed starters have similar abilities. Squirtle has Torrent, increasing Water-type moves, and Charmander has Blaze, increasing Fire-type moves. We'll be seeing what those 2 are capable of, though, in future videos. There are many different abilities that don't always reflect the same type of mechanic as Overgrow, Torrent, and Blaze. Intimidate, for example, reduces your opponent's attack stage by 1 when a Pokemon with this ability first enters battle. You may have noticed this against the Gyarados that we've been facing up to this point. We will see more examples of Intimidate in the coming Blaine battle from both his Growlithe and Arcanine. Fortunately for Bulbasaur, we are using our special attack stat exclusively, and it won't have any impact on us. This Blaine fight is going to be difficult enough as is. Blaine is the Fire-type gym leader. His name makes me think of a combination of the words Blaze and Flame, which also leads me to believe that he may play professional dodgeball in his free time. Unfortunately for Bulbasaur, we now face a battle with 4 powerful Fire Pokemon, each equipped with Fire Blast, that will both take half damage from our attacks and deal double damage against us. Luckily, we can skip all of the trainers leading up to Blaine by scoring 100% on the Pokequiz mechanic in this gym. Blaine leads with a Growlithe followed by Ponyta. His two final Pokemon will be the evolved forms of these two, Rapidash and his ace, the original legendary dog Arcanine. Our first attempt of the fight demonstrates that this will not be an easy victory. This fight is unfortunately going to be very reliant on luck, as we have to lean heavily on sleep tactics and a successful setup. I quickly learned that I need to put all of my cheerleaders into the PC after the Growlithe uses Roar, which forces a switch, cancelling any setup moves that Bulbasaur has used thus far. I come back into the fight with only my Bulbasaur, and at this point it's becoming obvious to me that I need to meet one of three requirements to win this fight. I need to outspeed the Arcanine, survive a Fire Blast from the Arcanine, or rely on luck and fish for a miss from Fire Blast. Fire Blast has a base power of 120 in Generation 3, reduced to 110 in Generation 6, but an accuracy of 85%, the trade-off for such a powerful move. Still, not good odds for me. I tried equipping the Quick Claw to Bulbasaur in the hopes I could get the 10% activation chance against the Arcanine to move first, but this would be relying on yet another component of luck in this fight. I need to find a better solution. After defeating Giovanni and Silphco, I spoke with the President and received the Master Ball. I use it to catch the second Snorlax on the map in the hopes of getting the held item Leftovers. Unfortunately, Snorlax is holding a Chesto Berry, so the only way to get Leftovers will be having a Pokédex catch total of 30 and getting the item finder from Professor Oak's age. This seems like a very time-consuming item to pursue, so I instead decide to give Bulbasaur a Rost Berry that will cure a burn in the hopes of avoiding additional damage. It becomes apparent that I'm going to have to get more levels for Bulbasaur before this fight is possible. We are, after all, only 4 levels above Arcanine, a Pokemon with a type advantage and a base stat total of 555 compared to Bulbasaur's 318. But what level is going to give us a shot? I come back to the fight at level 53. This is over a damage rounding threshold, but our damage output is not the problem we're having. I haven't mentioned damage rounding before this point, but I feel like we've had enough technical babble for one video. The basic concept is that a Pokemon's level has an impact on the amount of damage it deals. The game does some math and essentially rounds down, giving certain levels higher increases in damage output, any level ending in a 0, 3, 5, or 8. I decide to use a couple of rare candies to bring Bulbasaur to level 55. This still isn't enough. I didn't save after using the rare candies, so it's back to grinding. The reason that I'm saving as many rare candies as I can is because given the problems a level 47 Arcanine is presenting, I know the champion's level 65 Charizard is going to be an incredibly difficult foe to overcome. I come back after some additional grinding and use 3 rare candies to bring Bulbasaur to level 58. The battle goes the same up until the Arcanine, and not only do we now outspeed, but Bulbasaur can just barely survive a hit from the Fire Doggo. Blaine uses a Hyper Potion, bringing Arcanine to full, and I forget about Overgrow, which would now guarantee a one-shot with Giga Drain. I instead go for HP Ice to keep him out of potion range, outspeed, and finish this fight with Giga Drain. I sit for a moment, savoring the victory. Thank goodness for those vitamins I used earlier in the run. For the sake of brevity, I will skip ahead to the 8th gym leader. After Blaine, I'm very worried about Bulbasaur's level, so I clear out every trainer in the gym with ease. In the Giovanni fight, I set up 2 growths against his first Rhyhorn and proceed to sweep his entire team without batting an eye. This is a breath of fresh air, and we gain the 8th and final gym badge. It's time to move on to the Elite Four, but we still have one more rival fight to get through before Victory Road and the Pokemon League. Again, in the interest of saving time, and I do mean a lot of time, I will skip ahead to the Rival 6 fight that I am successful in. All you need to know is that I attempted it at level 60 again and again and again. I finally decided to go do more grinding and come back to the fight at level 63 over the next damage rounding threshold. We're sticking with our guns here, relying on sleep and setup. We set up against the Pidgeot that manages to land a Feather Dance. This is ideal, as it only reduces our physical attack stat. I set all the way up to +6 special attack without losing too much health or any accuracy. This is the ideal situation, and I decide to go with a safe play using Giga Drain to take out the Pidgeot. Even though it's resisted, we're so set up that it falls in one hit and heals Bulbasaur back to full health. Alakazam comes out, and just like in Sylph, the AI does not see the kill, so it goes for Disable instead. With Giga Drain disabled, Bulbasaur fails to move, so we switch to HP Ice as Alakazam does its own setup. We take it out in one shot, bringing us to the biggest threat on his team, Charizard. Charizard joins the fray, outspeeds, and brings Bulbasaur to 0.5% of its maximum HP. Ouch. The reason we needed to be level 63 is because Flamethrower is now a damage range that we can survive. Barely. Trust me when I say that if the timer still existed, you would have seen a significant real-time increase coming into this successful battle. We strike back with HP Ice for neutral damage and take it out in one shot. Rhyhorn comes out, and thankfully we are now no longer disabled, so we can recover some health with Giga Drain. The rest of the fight is an easy sweep, but the amount of times I was defeated by the Pidgeot, Alakazam, and Charizard fills me with dread knowing that I have to face this trio again when they're level 59, 59, and 63 respectively, not 65 as I mistakenly said after Blaine. Victory Road poses no threats as I decide to skip almost all of the trainers. My thought process being that if, when, I need to grind more levels for Bulbasaur, I can just do it against the Elite Four as they have the highest experience yields at this point in the game. Our first challenge in the league is Lorelei. She focuses on the Ice type, but 4 of her 5 Pokemon are also the Water type, giving us super effective damage. The remaining Jinx is quite frail, so as long as we can set up consistently, I don't think we'll have any problems here. In our first fight, we trade a Mist Sleep Powder for an Ice Beam, twice, and Dugong knocks us out. Okay, not a promising start, but at least we know we can take 2 Ice Beams, which should give us a little bit of flexibility. In the next attempt, I discover some key things that will from this point forward make the fight reasonably consistent. I can set up against the Dugong, but after it wakes up, I take it out with Giga Drain, recovering lost health, and can finish setting up against the Slowbro. They're both capable of knocking out Bulbasaur with crits or freezes, but I can consistently get set up even at the level we're currently at. It seems my prediction about being able to grind levels against the Elite Four was correct. After setting up, the rest of her team is an easy sweep. Cloyster can be a bit annoying using Protect and wasting precious Giga Drain PP, but later I'll begin using HP Ice against it to take it down in 2 shots, conserving uses of Giga Drain for upcoming fights. Next we face Bruno, who has a terrible reputation as hands down one of the worst trainers in Generation 1. In the Gen 3 remakes, he seems to have done some training and buffed up a little bit. My biggest challenge against him is that both of his Onyxes, as well as the Hitmonchan, have Rock Tomb, which lower Bulbasaur's speed by 1 stage each time it hits. If they can manage to cut Bulbasaur's speed low enough, this can lead to problems. Despite this, with the recovery Giga Drain allows me, I take Bruno out on my first attempt, though I will mention that during my upcoming level grind, I will reset against him a few times. Coming into Agatha, we meet one of the first Pokemon that I thought about when assigning a hidden power type to Bulbasaur. Not the Gengars, but the Golbat. Its poison flying type would cut our grass move's damage against it by a factor of 4, and it seems to almost exclusively use Air Cutter, a powerful flying move against Bulbasaur, targeting our weaker physical defense. In our second attempt, I find a way through the fight even at only level 66. It took a little bit of luck as we don't have any recovery due to Giga Drain being used up in earlier battles. I want to minimize my usage of PP restoring items as there are a limited number of them throughout the game, so I will optimize my usage of it in the upcoming grind. The fight is definitely still scary at this point, with the final Gengar taking us down to 1 hit point before we secure the victory. Thank goodness it didn't know Psychic. Our final challenge of the Elite Four is the Dragon Master Lance. He holds the Pokemon that I was most concerned about when selecting my hidden power type. I chose Ice as it's super effective against 3 of his Pokemon and 4 times super effective against his Ace Dragonite, whereas just like Golbat, my grass moves would be doing 1/4 damage. I try setting up the Gyarados with some success, and end up falling to the Aerodactyl. As one of the fastest base stat Pokemon, even to this day, in this fight it has a speed of 173. There is no way Bulbasaur is ever outspeeding this thing, so our only option will be to have enough health after the Gyarados to survive Aerodactyl's wing attack. After a bit of luck in, once again, only my second attempt, I take out the Aerodactyl and sweep through the rest of Lance's team with HP Ice. In the upcoming grind, I will be saving 1 use of Giga Drain for the Gyarados to maximize my potential health coming into the Aerodactyl and add consistency to this fight. I'm quite pleased with Bulbasaur's performance through the Elite Four, and despite there being a few potential knockouts along the way, I feel that even at our current level there's a reasonably consistent strategy that will bring us to this point. As I've been discussing the Elite Four members, I've also been discussing the strategy I implement for grinding, because our true challenge lies ahead with the champion, and by far the most difficult battle Bulbasaur will face. As we take a deep breath and take on Bulbasaur's final challenge, it very quickly becomes apparent that level 67 is not enough. The Pidgeot outspeeds and immediately begins setting up sand attacks. We're lucky that it didn't attack us because it also gives us a piece of information about the Alakazam. I've mentioned in previous rival fights that the Alakazam's AI hasn't seen a kill. Well, in this fight, the AI calculates the damage range because it's a stinky cheater, sees the kill, and one-shots Bulbasaur from full health with Psychic. Well, that was pretty definitive. I won't show my remaining attempts at this level, nor will I show the full process of grinding, eating rare candies, attempting, failing, learning, and trying again. I will mention a couple of highlights along the way as we discover just how high a level Bulbasaur needs for this fight to even be possible. I learned that just like in the Blaine fight, I shouldn't have any of my cheerleaders with me because after a few growths, Pidgeot will begin to prioritize using Whirlwind to reset my setup. I begin outspeeding the Pidgeot at level 68, but even when we jump all the way to level 75, it can still two-shot Bulbasaur with room to spare. No, I still, to this point, have not even seen the Charizard. At level 78, the Pidgeot now needs 3 hits to knock us out, and I begin to make it to the Alakazam in most fights, and with a silly move choice from the Psy Pokemon, I finally see the Charizard. But that doesn't last too long. Still at level 78, I managed to get a lucky fight where I make it through Pidgeot and Alakazam with full health going into the Charizard. By the way, I have been using the Quick Claw as our held item up to this point, and I get even luckier with it activating, and I move first against the Charizard! I hit with HP Ice and... no! In this fight, I only went up to +3 because I didn't want to be hit by any more sand attacks, but clearly we need to do better than that. Oh, and Charizard is still one-shotting with ease. Now at level 80, our determined seed Pokemon is still not giving up. I do the same setup as always, and as you can tell, my frustration is beginning to show. Pidgeot brings me down to low red bar, but I put it back to sleep and continue setting up. This is so risky, but we managed to get all the way up to +5 and take it out with Giga Drain. Giga Drain brings us back over half health. Alakazam doesn't see the kill, chooses Future Sight, and we one-shot with Giga Drain, bringing Bulbasaur back to nearly full HP. Okay. Charizard comes out, and I can't believe it! We get a Quick Claw activation, taking out the Charizard with HP Ice. I can't believe that just happened. Charizard falls, and the following Exeggutor, Rhydon, and Gyarados can't do much of anything to us, not to mention we outspeed them. So finally, after hours and hours of grinding, learning, and a stubborn willpower, Bulbasaur has defeated the Pokemon League champion. Bulbasaur did it. We finished the game at level 80 with around 2 million resets and a game time of 7 hours and 47 minutes. The real time taken to complete this run was astronomical, including resetting to Misty to catch extra Meowths earlier for run 1.5. I want to say that it took around 10 hours of real time based on the length of footage that I have recorded, but this was my first playthrough of the vanilla game in a while, and I was learning so much along the way. Maybe starting these challenges with, like, Mewtwo instead of a first stage starter would have been a better decision, but we got there in the end. That fight was so ridiculously lucky, but at this point I need the win. The elation and adrenaline pumping through me when I saw that final Pokemon go down was incredible. But given how lucky that fight was and how disappointed I am with my overall play throughout this run, I don't think I'm quite done with Bulbasaur yet. I decided to do another playthrough with the bulb. Actually, I ended up doing several, but with this video already being over 40 minutes long, I would like to take a moment to condense a few playthroughs and my learning process so far into a couple of minutes while some footage plays in the background. I hadn't mentioned my nature at all during the first playthrough because, well, I couldn't figure out what was best. In my initial playthrough I went with mild to increase special attack and decrease defense. I figured that with powerhouses like Charizard and Alakazam in the late game I wouldn't sacrifice my special defense or speed, but wanted to keep my attack stat for the early game. In subsequent playthroughs, I found some success with a neutral nature, neither increasing nor decreasing any stats. I also tried a modest nature, increasing special attack and decreasing attack, but I felt that the penalty in the early game was not worth the additional special attack in the late game. As you also may have noticed, the timer's back. I got this working properly again for the other playthroughs. I also tried bumping my game speed up to 4 times, as after the time commitment of the first run, I felt that despite the increased difficulty of controlling the game at a faster speed, it was worth the reduction in real time. After my first playthrough with Bulbasaur, I was so interested in what level I would actually be able to consistently beat the champion, so I did end up dropping Sour back into A-Save, using their save file before the champion. I then discovered that Bulbasaur starts surviving a Fire Blast from full at level 85. I also decided that while I was being a cheaty McCheat with A-Save, I would try different strategies in the fight. These included using Substitute instead of Sleep with Leftovers, and a defensive build relying more on our old friend Leech Seed, Substitute, Toxic, and I tried swapping between Synthesis and Protect. During this testing, I didn't care much about the challenge or logistics of keeping these moves until a champion fight, as I was only interested in seeing if they were better strategies. Despite how unreliable sleep tactics were, they ended up being the most reliable strategy I could come up with without leveling into the 90s. Thank you, A-Save, for giving me a way to test this in a couple of hours instead of a couple of days. With all of that being said, let's jump into my final playthrough, but I will only be focusing on battles that were difficult or resulted in additional grinding in the first playthrough. The first change is actually as far back as the SSN. This time I make sure to grab the citrus berry and rare candy on Route 5 before coming here so that I can equip the citrus berry to Bulbasaur for the rival fight. This serves to give us a safety cushion if things go south. Next is actually the next rival fight at Pokémon Tower. This guy. I find the hidden power TM much earlier this time, so I'm able to use it in this fight. I'm not playing around with this Pidgeotto again, so I take it out immediately with HP Electric. Wait a minute, did he just say electric? Yes, I did. I decided to change the type of my hidden power as it gives us the advantage of not being resisted by fire types. It allows us to use less setup in key fights, increasing our consistency, as well as lets us grind the ocean around Cinnabar Island with more ease. There is some good experience in this area of the game that I didn't get in previous runs because HP Ice was resisted and Giga Drain only has 8 power points. We sweep the rivals team with ease with this change. The majority of the mid-game remains unchanged. I'm much more efficient with my movement and routing this time and add a lot of additional grinding. Without HP Ice on our side, I leaf Erica until later, as we can come back and defeat her at any time. I clear out almost all of Silphco, with the exception of Rival 5 and Giovanni. I clear the dojo, and then I clear Cycling Road, and make my way down to Fuchsia City. In Fuchsia City, I clear the Safari Zone, this time only picking up the Gold Teeth and Surf HM. Oh, and I remembered Repels this time. I'm so proud of me. I defeat all of the trainers in Koga's gym and defeat Koga without issue on my first attempt. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about Erica. I didn't want to leave her behind. Because of the additional training I've done elsewhere, I only defeat 2 mandatory trainers in her gym. I have a Cherry Berry equipped to Bulbasaur in case I get paralyzed, even though I don't think there's any reasonable way we can lose this fight at this point. Look at how overleveled I am. What can I say? I'm being overly cautious. I set up and sweep her team, throwing in one last Razor Leaf for flavor, as we're about to erase it in favor of Giga Drain. Coming into what was our first major challenge in Run 1 is Rival 5. With my additional training and preparation for Blaine, Rival 6, and the Elite 4, plus my updated hidden power though, this fight is not that scary anymore. I set up and begin knocking out Pokemon. Exeggcute hangs on with a sliver, darn nature. But we take it out immediately and sweep the rest of Rival 5's team. Giovanni isn't worth covering and we move on to Sabrina's gym. I clear all of the trainers with a map of the warp pads on my second monitor because I can be taught. I decided to clear her gym for 2 reasons. Bulbasaur does need more training and these Pokemon will be providing EVs for special attack and special defense. Hopefully we aren't capped on our EV points yet, but either way we need the experience. Sabrina goes just like in every other run. We set up, she sets up. We set up better and sweep her team. This gives us our 6th gym badge and brings us into the late game. In my previous runs, this whole upcoming section of the game has been an absolute gauntlet to get through. So here's hoping that with my additional planning and training, we continue our so far smooth progress. We head back home to Palatown and surf south to Cinnabar, doing a little additional training along the way. I defeat a couple of trainers in Cinnabar Mansion and grab a rare candy that I missed last time. We make it past the quizzes in Blaine's gym and it's time to see if our hard work has paid off. We set up against the Growlithe, but this time we only need +4 for HP Electric to sweep his team. This time none of Blaine's blazing bunch can hold a candle against the power of our charged up Bulbasaur. I get an unnecessary critical hit at the end just to rub a little more salt into the wound that Blaine inflicted on us during the first run. I'm going to gloss over Giovanni again because with a few setups of growth, his team is no match for Giga Drain. I also defeat every trainer in his gym for additional experience. Coming into Rival 6, he takes us out twice due to some bad luck, or maybe I should just call it sleep luck, but we manage to get our setup in and begin our offensive. The Charizard outspeeds us and hits a big flamethrower, but because of the extra training we did in the mid-game, it doesn't even bring us into Red Bar. We finish off his remaining Pokemon and we are off to the league one more time. Based on how I tried routing my late game, I know that I need to hit level 69, nice, before going into my final league attempt. This should maximize the amount of experience we get from our rare candies. I budgeted for 14 rare candies to be spent before our final Agatha fight so that once Lance is defeated, we should be going into the champion fight at level 85 as per our testing. With all of the candies we've picked up throughout the region and a couple extras from Meowth's pickup, we should be set. Let's do this. The footage playing in the background until this point was my final training against the Elite Four. I did stubbornly reset against Agatha at level 67 a few times while training before I realized that I was just wasting time. I took my whiteout and finished my leveling. Now that we're at a nice level, it's time to execute the plan. The Lorelei fight is pretty much unchanged from the original run. We set up to +4 against the Dugong while it sleeps on the job and take it out with a Giga Drain, regaining the health it took off with Ice Beam. Slowbro is next, 1 shot. Lapras is next, 1 shot. Jinx is next, 1 shot. Cloyster comes out, 1 shot? I actually needed to recapture this Lorelei voiceover because I was so used to Cloyster using Protect that I wrote it into the script before watching the footage. Anyway, our first league member is down. Bruno is also unchanged from the first run. We set up against the Onix or the Hitmonchan, or both if Onix is being annoying like it is in this fight. Not super threatening, just annoying. We take down the Hitmonchan with a slightly concerning health bar coming into the Hitmonlee. Mega Kick connects, but doesn't do enough, and we take it down, recovering some much-needed HP. Onix shows off its dance moves, while we Giga Drain and recover comfortably into green health. Last is the super imposing Machamp, but we take it down easily. League member number 2 has fallen. I decided to pump Bulbasaur full of candy before the Agatha fight, simply because of how inconsistent she can be. Are you prepared for one of the most satisfying video cut montages of all time? For a Pokenerd, anyway. We use all 16 rare candies? I guess I was a bit luckier with pickups this run. I've never been one to turn down free food, so as we continue to spike Bulbasaur's insulin levels, let's take a moment to appreciate that timer. The first run, A, didn't have one after Surge, Misty, and B, if the timer existed, it would have been 9.5 hours right now, I think? I feel we've come a long way. We've finished leveling Bulbasaur up and it's time to continue the league. Agatha, with an additional 16 levels under our belt, is substantially easier. I get a little frustrated with her early on, and am so thankful I equipped that Person Berry to get rid of the confusion. I eventually decide to forego sleep and set up against the already +4 double team evasion lamer. +5, sorry, and finally get a shot in, taking it down. At this level, it's no surprise that I outspeed the Golbat, taking it down with HP Electric. Haunter comes out and falls just as fast. Her ace Gengar comes out, hits a Sludge Bomb, super owie, and falls as well. Arbok joins the battle, intimidates us to no effect, and Bulbasaur shows the Cobra what a real poison type does. Use electric type moves. Agatha is defeated, and we're on to face the final fight of the Elite Four. I saved some elixirs from earlier in the run so that there would be no concern about our power points being depleted going into these final fights. With our Bulbasaur fully recovered and raring to go, we begin our encounter with Lance. We set up as we always do against the Gyarados, and when it refuses to stay asleep, I decide to just go for it and start attacking. I take it out with Giga Drain, moving on to the Aerodactyl. The fossil Pokemon is still outspeeding us, making me wonder why any Pokemon needs to be that fast as it goes down to a Bulbazap. Dragonite comes out and we, whoops! We only take it into orange health. It strikes back with Wing Attack and KOs Bulbasaur. I think 2 things happened here. I got way too overconfident and totally forgot I'm hitting it for neutral damage instead of quadruple super effective damage with HP Electric instead of HP Ice. Shaking off our little whoopsie, we come back into the fight and do it properly this time. I think I'll blame my thumb being too tired from all those evolution cancels before Agatha. We set all the way up to +6 because Bulbasaur isn't being controlled by someone who's a little bit vindictive at times, and we take out the Gyarados with Giga Drain. Aerodactyl is back on the field, but only long enough to let Bulbasaur know it was there, and we're back to Dragonite. We hit a +6. HP Electric, and because my Bulbasaur knows exactly how to keep me happy, it's a critical hit as well. I may never play another Pokemon. We clean up the remaining Dragonairs even though they resist us, and our Elite Four challenge is over. I'd cross my fingers for a decent champion battle, but I need them to press buttons. We take a moment to heal up, prepare ourselves, and scan through our berries to see if anything stands out as useful. I was tempted to put on an Oran Berry for the lulz, but decided a Rost Berry is the more responsible choice in case Charizard burns with Fire Blast. It's serious time now. It also occurs to me that I haven't mentioned my Bulbasaur's nature in this run. As we slow walk into the champion's room, I'll quickly explain Bulbasaur's nature. I went with a neutral nature on this run, as even trying for a plus speed nature, we didn't outspeed the Charizard until we were level 90+. That, and there weren't any stats I was willing to reduce for Bulbasaur. Special attack and speed are gimmies, our lacking defensive stats are now why we're level 85 without a reduction, and even losing attack had such a negative impact on the early game. So I chose a neutral nature. Serious. A serious nature. Because we're serious dudes, doing serious things. Seriously. The champion leads with Pidgeot. We set up to +3 growth while Pidgeot unfortunately gets us with 2 sand attacks. I decide it's time to attack before losing any additional accuracy. My strike connects, taking it down in a single hit. Okay, not the best start, but we can work with this. Alakazam hits with Psychic, dealing massive damage, but we manage to recover most of it, taking it down with Giga Drain. We level up to 87 thanks to the extra rare candies, and out comes Charizard. It outspeeds and... wait, what? I outspeed it? I guess my calculations were wrong. Even at 87, I didn't think we'd be close to 150 speed, never mind above it. We're slower than the Alakazam, so I guess we're somewhere between 150 and 159? Weird. It unfortunately doesn't matter in this fight, as we miss with HP Electric and Charizard takes us out with Fire Blast. In order to survive one of those, we need to be at full health. The next fight goes much smoother in the beginning, and we're able to set up to +3 with growth. I'm not going to let an opportunity like this slip by, so before I get greedy and go for +4, Bulbasaur strikes with HP Electric, taking out the Pidgeot. Alakazam goes for Psychic again, which we partially recover from with Giga Drain. We're not at full health, but hey, we outspeed the Charizard now, right? Nope, we're actually speed tied. I guess we have 150 speed. Charizard takes us out for reset number 2. In the next fight, I get overly risky again and set up to +5 for some reason, which results in getting hit by another sand attack. We still land HP Electric, taking out Pidgeot, but now we're at -2 accuracy for the rest of the fight. Alakazam is loving his Psychic spam, which is odd because he never used it this much in testing. Charizard comes out and we roll the dice, first on the speed tie and then on the hit. We lose the draw again and Bulbasaur goes down for reset number 3. I reset twice more, losing speed ties and being sand attacked into oblivion. I come into the next fight being able to get +3 set up with growth, while Pidgeot brings me down 2 accuracy stages with sand attack. I once again take it out, and holy moly, the Alakazam doesn't use Psychic for a change? We take it out with Giga Drain and bring Bulbasaur back to full health? The Charizard comes out, we select our move, hold our breath, and yes! We hit! We hit! I don't want to count my seeds before they sprout here, but dare I say it? Could this be it? We start missing Executor like it's going out of style, but finally we connect, taking it down. Rhydon goes down too, though the thought of missing my last 4 Giga Drains entered my mind. Wouldn't that have been something, eh? Gyarados comes out and stands no chance against +3 4-time super effective HP Electric. Bulbasaur has done it. It's still not allowed to evolve, but it's done it! Professor Oak comes to congratulate us and scold his grandson for being weak. Weak of heart. Bulbasaur has definitely won mine through all of this. We walk down to the Hall of Fame and I am over the moon. Such humble beginnings for both Bulbasaur and myself. What a journey. Bulbasaur clocks in with a real time of 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 7 seconds, with 17 resets and a game time of 7 hours and 41 minutes. This is an incredible time for me, as of the 4 other runs I ended up doing while I was finding my groove, my best time before this run was just barely shy of 3 hours. Incredible performance by our little seed Pokemon. Bulbasaur is definitely deserving of its spot in the Pokédex as 001. While the credits roll, I have to take a moment to thank you if you've watched this far. This is my first ever video that I've recorded, edited, scripted, voiceover-edited, and released to YouTube. So as is tradition in appeasing the YouTube algorithm, like, subscribe, and comment to let me know how you think I did and what you'd like to see in the future. The next video that I plan to release will be a solo playthrough of Squirtle. For now though, I think I need to get to bed. Take care everyone.